All right. You are listening to the Deadman's Tome podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Deadman, and this show, of course, is broadcast live from a trailer park deep in the heart of Meth County, Texas, full of drunks and people who have no regard for the coronavirus. I got to tell you, social distancing, we haven't done that at all. This whole block of trailers, we've been pretty much having get-togethers all the time. We're almost done with it. And we're good. But our guest tonight is Kaibus. Kaibus, how's it going? You doing all right?
Hey, how you doing, man? I'm doing great.
You're doing great?
How are you?
Do you have the corona?
I do not have the Rona.
Oh, good. Good to hear. And now, you are a real vampire, is that right?
I am.
You are a real vampire. Now, could it be that? Is that why you don't have the coronavirus?
Don't quote me.
Don't quote you. Okay.
No, I highly doubt it. I wouldn't go as far as saying that. Absolutely not. But
okay. Well, as far as we know, do we know anyone who's a vampire that has the coronavirus?
I don't know anybody personally. No.
Right. I'm joking too because it's like I think it looks like we're getting out of this. It looks like. Yeah, a lot of people have it, I guess, a lot more than asymptomatic, whatever. But, if it's not affecting you, I guess not affecting you. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, people have to be smart about it, too, for us to get out of it as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
A lot of people are being ridiculous.
Yeah.
So licking toilets and, just don't do that, folks.
We talked about her on on this show. I forgot her name, Ava something. But yeah, she was licking toilets, trying to encourage people to do stupid stuff. See, here's the thing. Well, in this trailer park, we all like socialize and we're spreading. Well, we weren't spreading. We're having beers, whatever, barbecues. Anyone that was a stranger to the park, we're like, we don't know you. Get out of here. Get. So I guess we were doing our own little quarantine. Anyway.
Social distancing.
Yeah. One announcement I will say. Look, I know things are tough because coronavirus. Some people are, I guess, struggling with employment, I suppose. But we all got our Trump bucks. Well, at least a lot of us did. And you're going to get yours pretty soon. So what I'm saying is the 99-cent specials on all of our books, or a lot of the books, is probably going to be stopping in the near future. I would say, look, if things go back up at around mid-May, I don't know, man. The 99-cent special on just about all the books is going to go bye-bye. So now's the time. Now's the time to jump on it if you want to. And we're talking about...
Who's been doing 99-cent sales?
Yeah, on various titles. A lot of titles. You just go look up Deadman's Tome on Amazon. You can go to deadmanstome.net. You'll see our books there as well. A lot of... I'll do a post. That way people know that the special is almost over. Anyway... With that said, let's get into this. So, Kaibus, I started with one question for all my guests. Who are you and what do you do? And we'll go from there.
I am a songwriter, an aspiring writer. Writing more. I don't have anything published or music out yet, but I am getting close to releasing probably some music sometime this year. In the next couple of years, I'll probably have a book out. As far as like day-to-day work, my normal day-to-day, I just usually work customer service. Right now, I'm kind of like, I'm not considered essential, so I've kind of been transitioning, trying to find something else, but things are kind of goofy in California right now.
Oh,
everything's shut down, so.
Things have been goofy in California for a while, is that right? Is that fair to say?
It was about 3 or 4 weeks ago that they really started like, things are closed down.
Mm-hmm.
No sit-in restaurants. If you're going to Starbucks, even McDonald's, you have to go through the drive-thru.
Yeah.
So things like that. A lot of places are doing. I'm sure they're doing that in a lot of places around the country. The no contact deliveries.
Yeah, they're doing
which some people I've heard.
Yeah, they're doing that here in Texas too. And you'll see the line for Whataburger going all the way out to the highway because. We want our fucking Whataburger. We're addicted to that shit. I don't care if they sold out to Chicago. I was on the hate train too. I was like, fuck Whataburger. But that only lasted 2 days. Because
they sold out to Chicago?
Well, there was some sort of firm or something, that investing firm.
Yeah. Gotcha.
It's family owned. When the young ones in the family get in charge of the business, they make some silly decisions. Let's make more money.
Right. As if they don't have enough already. They're getting their Trump bucks too.
Right. All right. So you are a real vampire. So let's get into that. First off, how important is it for you to identify as a vampire? Is this just a label? Is this just a term? Or is this something that you actually... I'm going to put it to you bluntly. I know it might sound offensive or whatever, but is it real? Do you actually believe this? Or is it just...
Yeah, no, it's totally real. It is something I believe. It's not... I'm not a role player. I'm not a cosplayer. Not that there's anything wrong with those things. It's not spiritual to me or religious. It is part of my identity. I would say it's important to me as a personal identity. It's not important to me as far as other people identifying me as a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something that would like offend me, or it'd be hard pressed for you to say something that's really gonna like get me going, get under my fangs, so to speak. So,
well, so how would you? Okay, so it's important to you. You're not role playing. You're not pretending. But I'm sure you get it quite a bit. Like, I'm sure you get some flack, right? You get people who naysay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. What do you say to that?
There's a lot of people that don't take it seriously. It's real. It's all I think in my opinion, every myth or lore or legend like comes from somewhere. So over time, it's just been kind of conflated and blown out of proportion. And there's plenty of stuff to purport, people like me being around hundreds of years ago. Those legends and myths and stuff have been around, almost every culture in the world. So there's plenty of stuff there that for people to look at to see, okay, this had to come from somewhere. Something I wrote down earlier, I was making a few notes before we did the podcast. And what I put down was that someone who identifies as a real vampire, to me, I would describe it as a human that requires an outside source, that being blood or metaphysical energy from another human, to be able to physiologically, physically, psychologically, and or metaphysically maintain a normal state of being. I always tag on at the end metaphysically and or, because not everyone experiences a metaphysical side of it. I do.
Okay.
So I'm not like everybody in that respect.
Okay. Now I've heard metaphysical quite a bit. Who hasn't heard that term before? But okay, so we're talking about someone. Well,
to break it down easily for you, is what most people, the layman, would refer to as a psi vampire or a psychic vampire, is someone that only, basically only does the metaphysical side of it. So metaphysical feeding could consist of feeding off of sexual arousal.
Okay.
That could consist of giving someone, a back rub, or just placing your hands on them.
Wait.
And drawing
tell it. Wait, does that mean that the Thai masseuse lady could be a vampire?
She very well could be. I'm not saying because she's a masseuse she's a vamp, obviously, but she definitely could be. Sure, anybody could be. I mean, that's pretty non-linear.
Okay, just want to make sure. Gotta make sure, because if someone gets like some sort of...
I don't always do the contact feeding using massage.
Oh.
Sometimes I will just place my hands on the person I'm feeding from and visualize and pulling that energy into myself. A lot of it's focused around my breath. Typically, when I'm breathing in that positive energy, that new fluid energy, and then when I breathe out, I'm expelling bits and pieces of it that I don't need. I'm cycling through it. That's a good way to... One of the best ways that I could describe it, where it's not confusing.
Okay, well, we'll definitely dig into that.
So that's kind of of course, that's the psychic side of it, right? And then there's people that are strictly sanguinarian, or what you would say saying. Saying is derived from Latin meaning of blood, that they don't experience a metaphysical side to it. Their need or their hunger is strictly physical. For physical human blood, they may supplement with animal blood. And then someone that is hybrid or a universal feeder like myself experiences both sides of that. I wouldn't really say it's a spectrum, because there's really the two sides of it, the psychic.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that spectrum thing. People be like, what, is it like autism
absolutely.
now? Like, okay. All right.
Yeah. So, a universal feeder, or someone that is a hybrid, is not really a mix of the two. We're kind of different in the way that myself, at least personally, I would say, I couldn't speak for all hybrids, but I experience both.
Okay.
My metaphysical hunger is more subtle. I do a lot of ambient feeding, ambient being, you probably heard that term, energy that's just out and about, that's being exhumed from people, right, or plants,
so
animals,
all these different
things like that.
But all these different variants of feeding, how do you really know if someone's a vampire? Like, if someone were just to say, "Oh yeah, dude, bro, I'm a vampire," like bro,
I suck blood.
No, I don't suck blood. That's what basic vampires do. I do energy.
That's
okay, I put my hand over someone, and I absorb part of their energy. Like if they said that, like, how would you be able to know for sure that they're being legit, or they're just BSing you?
Well, typically, what it's usually called in the community is the beacon, and for lack of a better term, it's an okay term. We experience in something kind of like tunnel vision, like when, especially seeing like someone like that in person, I would say that I would usually know whether they really truly are vampiric or not. Online, it's harder to tell, but I think hybrids more than a lot of people, and that's something that, like, well, that you can ask me a few things about, little senses that hybrids get that isn't really something we talk about a lot, because we kind of get dogged for it, like we're being, facetious. And so that can be like those different ways, that kind of intuition can be something that's kind of individual to hybrids in a way.
Okay.
Or at least in my case, a few other hybrids I know.
It sounds complicated and difficult.
It's hard
to figure
explain.
out who
It's
would be a vampire. And I'm asking because if I was to be a vampire hunter and wanted to, do Van Helsing's work or Blade's work, because Wesley Snipes is out, right? He's out. He could resume his Blade role now if he wanted to, if they gave it to him. But I'm just saying, how would we know? Is there like some sort of test? Is it like you put him in water?
There's not anything that you could get a test. Of course, yeah. Any kind of holy water is going to be. Oh,
not holy water. No, I don't want pedo priest water. No, I'm
not
saying
holy water.
That's probably going to curse you. That'll probably make you into a vampire. Taking the blood of Jesus, that's going to make you into a vampire, I'm sure. There has to be another test. Like sunlight? I mean, can you go out in the sun?
Yeah, of course. We can go out in the sun. Some people are a little more sensitive, and it's more or less what a lot of people think that has more or less to do with is, if you think of, to quote Balthazar in New Orleans, the sun is kind of like a big ball of energy, right? So some of us being kind of sensitive to energy more or less, more so than the normal person, that can kind of, some people are more susceptible, whatever. I find I wear glasses when I go out and stuff. I always make sure. If I don't, I usually get bad headaches.
Well, I wear sunglasses indoors. I mean, does that make me? I'm wearing sunglasses.
I wear my sunglasses at night.
That's how sensitive I am.
I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and he was joking that I'll have the lamp in the background. Like, I can't have any brighter light. This is as much as I can handle.
And of course, I'm joking. I make a lot of jokes here, but that's serious.
I mean, that's one of those things that
you drink blood.
That's one of those things. Yes, I do. not to cut you off, but that's one of those things that's kind of like, to talk about the sunlight a little more. That's one of those things that's like, that is something that I'm sure has been blown out of proportion over the years. And some people are and some people aren't, like with anything in life. So I do drink blood. I have
Okay.
some with me. This is actually keys, little small oranges, uh,
That
ice
is
cubes,
okay.
and and beef blood, and then almond milk with bananas. Yes.
Almond milk
So
with
I
bananas.
just wanted to,
Okay.
and then that's what I'm sipping on here. That's my frozen drink for the evening.
Okay. And I'll say for those watching on the YouTube stream, I try to get I try to pull the Skype whatever on the video onto the OBS, but it wasn't working right. Whatever. But yeah, he's showing a
Okay.
jar, a mason jar that has some blood in it. So it is the real deal. Let's backtrack a little bit. Let's get more context, more
Sure.
history. Is there a certain reason? Well, let's get to why. Why a vampire?
Why a vampire? Because that's the only thing that, aside from being grossly exaggerated, that I could relate what I am or how I live my life. Um, so that's the only thing that's ever made sense to me to call it.
Okay.
And it's never been anything to say, oh, I'm some immortal being, and I'm 3,000. I don't even get into the whole reincarnation thing. That might be a crapshoot for all we know. But that's always been the closest thing that mirrors how I live my life.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to me when I was young. I awakened at around the age of 18. Prior to that, I wasn't aware of that hunger. There are certain things like in my childhood and stuff now that I look back at
Okay.
and I can tell, okay, that makes sense now, things like that. But there was that actual moment, and for some people it actually is like that, where I went through this awakening and it was really jarring. It was really strange for, what was going on then, and it was hard for me to understand. And I found out about this kind of thing before that actually happened to me. And of course, there's going to be some trolls out there and whatever. And I've had some people try and come at me and say, "Oh, it's psychosomatic then." Well, not necessarily. That doesn't mean that. I went through things that I actually had physical changes. Now, I'm not talking about something dramatic, but after my awakening, I actually walk differently, as strange as that might sound. That's something that I haven't really talked about a lot.
Okay. Okay.
And I was talking to. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna
What
say.
were you gonna say?
So, what happened when you were 18? Like what led to the awakening? And on the side question is,
Well,
this being a vampire, is this something that you're born into, something that you just become, like that
it
you
is
grow
something
into?
you're born into.
You're
It
born.
is
Okay.
something you're born into. Typically, you would kind of want to think of an awakening as kind of being like vampire puberty. It's something that we deal with like at some point in our lives, if we're fully awakened. Someone can kind of be like dormant. Like my mother is dormant. She's not really fully awakened like I am, to the point where she's aware of those metaphysics and the kind of underlying things that are actually going on. Okay. So that's the difference between, right there. There's a difference between myth and reality, is that we're not turned. We are born this way, and usually, during adolescence or puberty is when usually that onset happens.
Okay.
And for me, it kind of took like a jarring, things going on around me, and I had just moved in with some friends, or not really friends, but some people that were letting me stay with them. The woman, the mother of the family, was aware of what was going on with me at the time, and different things started to happen. I became aware of metaphysics.
Okay.
I could feel my aura. I could see. Sometimes I see other people's auras, or energy in the air. Uh, Realizing that I was able to like manipulate metaphysics. As a brief example, after I left where I was at in North Carolina, where all that initial awakening happened, that I was in Kentucky at a Job Corps there finishing out my high school diploma and a trade.
Okay.
And I actually demonstrated it to two girls that were there on campus.
You demonstrated manipulating
Psychic
metaphysics of psychic feeding.
Yes.
Okay. How did you demonstrate that? I'm curious.
So I think they like had their hands out. I didn't do any kind of massage or anything because you know how teachers can be and stuff, physical contact, whatever. So they had their hands out and I put my hands. They just had their hands in my hands, right? And I concentrated and pulled that energy into myself. And I did it to both of them. I actually was doing this like through a line, almost not really a line of people, but I had 3 or 4 people that I did this with, and they were actually so affected by it that they were then, they're going to the dorm for the night and they're like almost falling asleep walking to their dorm, like about to fall over almost. It was really comical.
Wait. I mean, you got to ask some questions here to get to the bottom of this. I mean, to rule out any other reasons, explanations for this. I mean, how long was the walk?
Oh, you're talking a 2-minute walk from where we were sitting to like their dorm.
Okay, so in a 2-minute walk.
I mean, as soon as they got up.
Out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're like tired as they're getting up to leave. Like before I was even done, they're already getting like groggy and kind of, And that's like a lot of what the metaphysic feeding like would consist of, like how somebody's going to feel afterwards. You might be tired, kind of lightheaded. Okay. In an extreme case, maybe like some flu-like symptoms. Mm-hmm. But that's, that would have to be a really heavy, like deep psychic feed on someone, I think, for it to be that extreme. But
so you could,
usually you'll get that energy back metaphysically, like eating something or sleeping, whatever, in a matter of like 12 hours or something. It's not even that. That's a typical, kind of light medium feed. That's not really going to be very super intrusive, etc.
So did the thirst for blood, did that start when you were 18 too?
Yes, that was from the very beginning. I've actually had people ask me that question.
How did that start? It was like, how does it even happen? Did someone get cut and you're like, oh, let me just drink the blood?
No, I was actually thinking of that earlier. That's a memory I have of being there, where I was staying at in North Carolina, was staring into the fridge, feeling kind of like sick to my stomach, but hungry. And nothing in the fridge really looked good. I actually felt like, and of course I've experienced that afterwards, that if I ate before I had like some kind of, something else that I needed before I had food, that I would get sick, that I would throw it up or something like that. So a lot of times, like I'll have my feeding every couple days of actual blood, human or beef blood.
Okay.
And I'll have that before I actually have, like, say, that meal that evening or something. And it just helps with my digestion. I'm saying to make sure I do it before a meal. Of course, that's not the only thing it helps with. But there is a physical aspect to blood hunger. There is a feeling to having a hunger for metaphysical energy. It is something that I do experience on a regular basis, that I have since I was that age, like since those things started to happen to me and etc. So
and can't let this go by. These sort of changes that you're talking about. Of course, this is something that you'd read about in like in Dracula or an Anne Rice novel, or see in a movie.
Not to that extreme,
but not to that extent. Okay,
that's why I say like, it's the closest thing that we have to say, okay, well, this kind of mirrors what we are. So it's the closest thing that we have. Like, for instance, like I said, that I walked differently after my awakening. And that's not something I've really told a lot of people, my close friends and stuff. I've talked to about it and things. And something that I thought, I was like, I wonder if this is like a predatory thing, because I have a habit now, and I do it instinctually without thinking, right? When I'm outside, I don't do it when I'm in the house, but when I'm outside, I walk very quietly. I walk like almost dead quiet. Like I scared my mother-in-law the other
Like
day
a
because she was
like a
looking into
creeper,
the
or
car
like you're creeping around looking for a victim. Like do you buy people?
looking for a meal.
I know we'll probably have some vampires watching. Like, yes, those are silly questions, but do you buy people? Do you ask consent? Like, how does that work?
I don't bite.
You don't buy people.
I don't bite people to feed. That is something that some people will do.
Okay.
That's a misconception too. To kind of say that that's a lot of people say, oh, that's not a thing. You shouldn't do that. Well, if it's between two consenting adults, I mean, come on, clean your mouth out, be clean, don't get infections and etc. But if that's between two consenting adults and that's what they want to
Yeah.
do, then
Because let me tell you, the
hey,
human mouth is disgusting.
it is. It
Disgusting.
absolutely is.
Yeah.
That's why I say make sure you brush, Listerine, all that good stuff. But that's not something I practice personally. Typically, if I'm going to feed via blood through a donor, I'm going to, use a lancet. I'm of course going to make sure to cut in a safe area. Very light cuts. I also use sanitary, like disposable piercing needles.
Okay.
That's something else you can use that's easy and accessible. You can order them online. They're reasonable.
Now, what happens when you feed though? Does it actually do something for you? I mean,
Well, that feeling of hunger is abated.
okay.
I feel better. I feel better physically. I feel better emotionally. Feeling better a lot emotionally is definitely more probably a hybrid thing than sayings. Sayings are kind of like tanks, like a Psy vamp could like drain the living crap out of a saying, and they're not even going to feel it. So for me, when I do that, that I feel better. I feel better physically. I feel better mentally. It's easier for me to concentrate. There are other people that have purported that as being a thing. They have trouble concentrating or staying on task when they don't have regular access to a donor or some type of blood or whatever their feeding thing is. So I'm able to concentrate easier. Stay on task. Like I said, I feel better physically. I do feel like I have more energy physically. Absolutely.
So, and before you discovered that the blood and feeding this would give you more energy and help you focus on task, did you struggle with that? Were you kind of like ADHD? Were you like can't focus on things?
I still deal with like some of those kind of things a little bit, but some of that thing, I think that has to do with my nature personally. I do believe in astrology. I don't believe necessarily that has anything to do with vampirism, but I do follow astrology. So I kind of have a dual nature to begin with. I'm a cusper, so I have traits of Scorpio and Sagittarius, and vampires in general, like real vampires, we do there. That's why I say there are some things that mirror reality, like having a dual nature. I can be very outgoing, and then there's times I just want to be left alone. I'm not really an introvert or an extrovert. I'm kind of, vampires as being loners is kind of a thing in a way, but not necessarily as much as people would put it out to be.
In that area, I can kind of relate. I've always been somewhat of a loner. I've always been to myself. I don't like to socialize. I'm not very much of an outgoing extrovert. Yet I do this show and I do things that might seem opposite. But really,
of course,
I can only handle so much social gathering. That's like, get the fuck out of my house.
Same.
But
same.
But of course,
for the vampiric side of it, see where that would be different between me and you, is I have issues sometimes being around a lot of a really big crowd, because I feel overwhelmed. And on top of being vampiric, I'm also empathic, so I pick up on people's emotions and things like that. So being hybrid, we're kind of more sensitive to a lot of those emotional energies. That's not to say everybody that's hybrid is empathic, but it's a lot. Sometimes it's like sensory overload. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, I have to make sure when I go out, I try not to. Sometimes I refer to myself as shiny. because I have a tendency to draw people to me that I probably don't want drawn to me.
Wait. When you say shiny, you got to make sure, like glittery shiny, like.
Oh, not Twilight. We're not
Okay.
talking. We're talking shiny. Like people are drawn to me sometimes.
That's good.
And that's a thing I have to make sure I shut off when I go out in public sometimes, because it could get me in a situation where I don't want to be in.
Okay, let me ask you something. This is a very, very, very serious question. Super serious question. Are you ready?
Super serial. Let's do it.
Okay. What is the worst thing about the how Hollywood has treated vampires? Is it the glittering in the sunlight, or the fact that they all shop at Hot Topic?
Oh gosh, man, that's a hard one. Probably Hot Topic. I'm gonna say Hot Topic.
You would take glittering vampires over Hot Topic.
I would take glittering vampires over Hot Topic. I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of things in this world that exist in the imagination of other people that could possibly bring someone to a realization about themselves. Mm-hmm. And if that's a good thing for that person, that they get that, like they figure out about themselves and they get that under control, etc., then to me that's a good thing. I think the goth culture probably gets bad enough rep as it is. So
I think the goth culture is hogging it. It's like every time you see a vampire film, it's like, oh, you got to be goth to be a vampire. It's like,
I went through my goth phase, but I mean, I've never been like, okay, I think we probably get more related to Satanists or Satanism than goth.
Yeah. That's better.
But I'm from the South, so I'm from Kentucky, so that's,
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Bible Belt.
They see you dressed like that, they'll be like, oh, a bunch of Satanists. I mean, I asked that because it's always like leather. You wear leather and black all the time. It has to be like that. And I see you, and you seem, honestly, if I were to see you in the street, based on what Hollywood fed me, and not just Hollywood,
you would never know.
Also in the books as well.
You would never know.
I would never know.
You would never have any clue.
Nope.
And typically, that's how a lot of us exist. Like, I am very vocal online about it. I do things socially surrounding it, but I'm not going to get on a bus and start talking to some random person and be like, hey, do you know I'm a vampire? How cool how cool is that, man? It's like some bum that just jumped on the bus or something. But
see, and I want to see more of that. I would actually.
Oh, what I was gonna say to you was something that's really you'll find this very interesting, right? Because you said, okay, we're all known for wearing black.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that kind of a vampiric aspect that runs in my family very strong is very high charisma. So I've always had this kind of unrealistic, not really unrealistic, but this unreal ability to kind of, I've always said like shine people or glamour. And so I go in for an interview to get to interview for this job. This is a couple years ago. And I had actually previously fed the night before.
Okay.
And
so you're feeling good. You're feeling good. You're hyped up.
I'm A-okay. I'm hyped up. I'm ready to give this lady the business. Not, physically, but
well, I don't know.
mentally.
I'm gonna
mind fuck her. So
are you? I mean,
no, it was an older lady. But so I go to the interview.
Yeah.
And everything goes great. I wow her at the interview, and she's like, I don't even know why I'm gonna hire you. She just kind of had this like mystified look. And again, this is something that I did. Now, some people would consider this not to be a good thing to do, whatever. But I think as long as you're not harming somebody, that we have these gifts for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. Some of us. So not all of us, because that's another thing too. That's a misconception. Is it's even across the board. But anyways, so I go to the lady at the front desk to give her my paperwork as I'm leaving, and she gives me this really funny look, and she's like, you kind of look like a vampire. Because I really was wearing all black. I had this button-up shirt on, black pants, and I kind of just shrugged it off, and she kind of said something else. She's like, oh, well, you're wearing all black and you're kind of pale.
Mm-hmm.
because I do have a tendency to stay like fairly pale.
Was Betty
so
White a vampire too? I mean, I don't know
Betty,
what this
she
interviewer's
might
name
be.
was.
She's still alive, right, and kicking it. So
I
that
was
might
talking
be
the
her.
person who was interviewing you. I don't know. He said she was older. But
Right.
so
The lady at the front desk said that when I gave her my paperwork, and it was kind of like in my mind, I had gone there and done my thing because I know I've used that gift that I have of high charisma before, so people could say whatever they want. I know very well what I went in there and did. And it was kind of like the lady at the front desk with the paperwork. She kind of like shrugged it off in her mind, like made it like, oh, she was making a joke, but really for a split second, she had kind of like seen past that curtain, you know what I mean? So to speak, of what I actually was as far as, okay, I'm human, but I did something that most humans aren't going to do to people or even have the capacity or the knowledge of how to do something like that. So that was like one experience I can kind of share where something interesting like that happened.
Wait, but
Boy,
were you
chuckle.
worried though? Because if she could identify you like that, see through, maybe like if vampires are real, then who's not to say that there's a bloodline of Van Helsings that can like identify and see?
Well, that's the thing is that see that would be, of course, I know you're just saying, oh well, maybe this, but there are some people that pick up on us.
Okay.
Like we're able to pick up on each other. There are some people that they don't experience the same thing we do when we pick up on each other, but they do kind of get a sense of it in a manner of speaking.
And I like
absolutely.
And I'm paying attention to the chat. I like what Damien Nightwalker said. The key is to blend in. You're right. You'd think all these other vampire stuff would be, they try to blend in and not be so stand outish. I don't know. Like I see you.
It's like a vampire pride parade with some people. That's what I joke and say, that it's overdone. It ends up becoming their only thing in their life, and that's
I read this vampire book the other day. I did a review on it, and I actually liked it. One of the reasons why is because that vampire there, he described himself as looking like George Costanza. I was like, that's what I'm looking for. I'm done with the long hair and the glamour. I'm done with that. I want
Joe Blow vampire.
Yeah, I want a vampire that just seems like just any other person. Come on, just give me that. Give me that.
I mean, because we are, in a manner of speaking, just like any other person. Like you said earlier. It's like if you'd seen me on the street, I wouldn't have stood out to you in any way.
Okay. Now we've been talking
and we'd
about
rather not
like
stand
this.
out. Really, the real ones would rather not stand out. Just
I
saying.
imagine so, because it's dangerous. Now, what else does this vampire identity entail? Like, and what's different between a vampire and just someone like
the
me,
core
an ordinary
aspect
person?
of it, like I said before, is that a person that has that fundamental need to maintain themselves through an outside source of energy. And now that typically, and this is strictly my opinion, and some people are free to disagree with me, but that's just a fact of life. A real vampire is a human being that preys on other humans. We don't prey on thunderstorms or trees. Now, that's something that somebody could take energy now and again, from those things, if they have that kind of capacity and ability to do that, and that's fine, but that's not what vampirism is. Vampirism is at its core is that fundamental need to feed, to be able to maintain themselves. Okay. Like I said before, physiologically, physically, mentally, of course, or psychologically, and or metaphysically, at the end, because not everybody gets that whole side of it. So,
and there's disagreement with this in the vampire community
as to what exactly,
to how, I guess I mean,
there's some people that get into what we call predatory spirituality. Now, predatory spirituality is someone that follows a certain spirituality or religious path, more commonly known as, they say, left-hand path, could be, or known as like lesser black magic. And they might be drinking blood, or they've figured out how to manipulate metaphysics and pull in the energy, etc. Now that is someone that is just practicing. They are practicing predatory spirituality. In reality, they are not a real vampire. Nothing against those people. It's just kind of, for lack of a better term, claiming our birthright. We are born this way, and something changes in us at a certain point in our lives, and it's inborn. It's not something that's taught or learned, etc. So that's kind of a difference.
Someone who, and I know you mentioned the weather of trees, you don't get the energy from that. Now, are there certain people, vampires in the community that think that way? You don't have to name names. Don't name names. We're not going to do any drama, but just
right.
But does that exist?
Of course not.
Are there vampires within the community? And that word's kind of loose too. That think that it's much more than predatory. It could also be like spiritual. You get energy from all sorts of stuff.
Angels and demons.
Music or food.
There's people that say plenty of things. In any kind of community or subculture, things that aren't true. There's not, like I said, that could be a substitute elemental energy or something, or plants, or say like animals. You could even feed off of an animal's energy. Yes, that is a thing that can be done. But those things in itself are not, they're kind of contradictory to what a vampire is someone that feeds off of, a like species, because we are still human. We are not, something other than human. We might be different, but we're still human, right? So that at its core is what vampirism is truly. For someone that is a real vampire, is that core hunger. That is the main thing. The other things that kind of can go along with that are what I like to call X, Y, and Z, meaning they're on top of, they're over and above. And that's, like I said, what kind of differs from the movies is that we're not the same, across the board. We vary in how we kind of are. That's where one thing that Anne Rice kind of got right is saying, vampires, everybody has their dark gift, and in some aspects that's kind of true. And I say some aspects because I say, like, again, it very lightly mirrors myth and lore and legend and fiction. So for me, glamour is or high charisma is something that I'm very astute to.
High charisma is important.
Versus something.
I don't know anything about charisma. I have none. But I played some D&D, and I understand if you got a lot of charisma, you can get
roll a lot of dice.
Yeah, you can get out of certain situations.
No, that's kind of funny you say that, because that's kind of like that's an inside joke you just threw out there.
It wasn't even D&D. It was some other game. I can't even remember. I think Exalted. I don't know. I played it once.
Elders and Allies.
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. But I remember I had the charismatic character, so I could always get out of certain situations. I was like, okay. But, all right, so not all vampires feed off blood. Sometimes energy. Okay. Let's get into...
And there is just to say really quick, there is a separate aspect to that, so people understand that when we talk about psychic feeding, that is strictly something that is metaphysical. When you talk about saying feeding or blood feeding, that is a physical thing. There isn't a metaphysical element to that. Some people would say there is. Some people dabble in blood magic and etc. And that's not what we're talking about. So that core blood feeding is strictly for the physical, whatever we don't know in science yet. That is the physical combination of those, particular the way blood is made up physically.
How much time you got? Because I think we might go a little bit over tonight. I don't know.
I'm fine. I'm good.
Okay.
We're good to go.
Okay. Because we're just still on this, and we've got to get into the cliches and tropes and all that. But definitely one area I want to tackle here is there a hierarchy with vampires? Is there some certain vampires that think they're better than others? And is there any truth to that?
A better way to put it would be there's some people that think they're better than others.
Yeah.
There are people that kind of... yeah, typically known as a-holes. Yeah. But yeah, no, totally. There is a hierarchy that exists that some people subscribe to, okay, and other people do not, because to someone like myself, you know, and not to everybody like myself either. There's plenty of people out there like me or whatever that might participate in that stuff too. But a lot of that stuff comes off as really role player-ish, especially the hierarchy. You know, a lot of people like to call themselves elders and leaders. I try not to label myself. You know, I'm going to be called whatever I'm called anyways, right? It's just going to happen. So, you know, there is kind of that thing out there, but it's more or less a kind of a thing where it's like, okay, if you subscribe to it, then it's something, it means something to you.
Right.
If you're a part of that group, then okay, sure. You know, but if you're outside of that spectrum, then hey, you know, to me, it doesn't matter to me. I have my own personal house that is linked in the description, House of Lilith. We are a non-denominational house, a good way to put it. You know, we're not religious. We're not, even though we do follow some, we have like some kind of traditions and rituals and stuff that we do that are based around the, you know, the narrative, right, archetype of the character Lilith, but we don't believe that we're descended from Dracula or Lilith or anything like that, you know. And there's not a lot of stuff that's prevalent like that. But as far as the hierarchical stuff, I don't subscribe, and there's plenty of people out there that don't.
Okay.
And there's plenty of people that do. You know, it kind of just, if it pertains to that person, then fine. If not, hey, whatever.
Okay.
All's fair in love and war, right?
Right. So wait, is Dracula, is Vlad not the OG vampire? Is he not the original?
Absolutely not. I would say, in my personal opinion, because it is something that I obviously deal with personally, being vampiric, that I would assume that there are only so many families that it comes from, not necessarily rich or poor bloodlines or anything. We just don't know. But as far as Dracula, like, no. That's, you know, that's just movie, whatever, you know, that's something that, what's his name, that whoever wrote that, I forget his name.
Bram Stoker.
Yeah, Bram Stoker. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an award award after him. If I didn't get that right, being a guy who publishes horror novels or horror short stories, really short story collections, they would kill me. They would crucify me. Something else that came up. See, guys, a very free form interview, just more of a conversation.
It always opens up other
there's
stuff.
set questions I definitely want to ask, but when it comes to religion,
ask away.
Does religion mix with being a vampire? I mean, are Catholics vampires because they drink the blood of Jesus, or Catholics, Protestants, Baptists? Are they all vampires in a way?
No, they're not.
They're just some.
And I see what you mean. You know, I mean, like, there's even stuff in Christianity, you know, or the Bible. You know, the blood is life. But real vampirism at its core does not have anything to do with any kind of religious or spiritual practice. There are people that would attest to that, to say that is how it is, and that's really just not the truth.
Not the truth.
You know, we're born this way, and you know, religion or spirituality is optional. You know, I know people that are Christians, I know people that are agnostic, people that are atheist. It's all across the board. So I
someone
myself,
like me who can't make a decision whether or not he's agnostic or Protestant, whatever, I guess you want to say that, I could still join if I wanted to. Well, if I was a vampire, I guess. That's the problem. Well, I'm not a vampire. I mean, I don't even know if I am. I don't even like blood. But
yeah, well, there's nothing to join for people to be a vampire. They're either simply born this way or they're not. Oh, and they go through awakening or they don't. So
I'm not really sure about psi energy either. I don't think I've ever got anything out of someone's energy, but I don't know. So I guess I'm not a vampire. I don't know. Like, how could you really tell? Like,
well, like I said, to get back to like the kind of the sense thing.
Yeah.
There's only been so many instances in my life where I've been around other people that I would say, okay, that person's a real vampire. As much as there's plenty of people that go to these different types of gatherings and events that would say they're a real vampire. You know, one instance of this was early on in my years when I was right around the time I was going through my awakening. I was with the family that I stayed with in North Carolina. We went to a public zoo, and there was two gentlemen standing about 200 or 300 yards away from me, maybe a little closer. They were wearing dark clothes, as cliche as that might sound.
Trench coats,
they were
black
wearing
trench coats.
no, not trench, but they were dressed nice though. They were wearing dark sunglasses, and they had umbrellas. And I remember they looked at me, and I looked at them, and it was what I described to you earlier. It was like tunnel vision. Everything else fades away, and there's just those three people. Is one of the easiest ways to describe that, and that was an innate sense. They knew what I was, and I'm pretty sure that they knew too that I was, for lack of a better term, a baby bat, that I had just briefly gone through awakening or was still in the process of, and they weren't, they didn't give me any kind of sense of like bad or anything, but they definitely threw the sense out there that we see you, we're watching you, be safe, etc. Nothing kind of negative or anything. And that's something that's always stuck with me over the years, that I have experienced other times. And that's kind of the best, easiest way that I could describe that. It's a hard thing to describe. It's just kind of like this sense of knowing that, okay, you're different and you're different like me, and it's almost like stepping away from the herd for a moment to glare at each other as big cats do.
Gotcha.
And know that there's something different about us. So,
by the way, I just want to say for those watching the YouTube stream, please, if you're enjoying this, please press the like button, share and subscribe. Though the YouTube channel is essentially dead to me, kind of sort of, because demonetized completely because the show's too sexy. I'm not making that up. That's what Google told me.
We're too sexy for monetization.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was letting my tits out the whole time, but apparently I have been. So, yeah, I want to help that. Normally, I take shots for donations, but what I'll do is if we get 5 likes, I'll start get into the Kraken. My kids are homeschooled now because you know what? I'll take a shot right now. That's what I do. I was looking for a shot glass. Some people might be, hey, this host looks distracted. I was looking for a shot glass. I don't have one on my desk. It's weird. So I'll just drink this out of the bottle. But before I do, okay. On this channel, on this podcast, I've talked about scientific papers regarding lycanthropy, werewolves. Are there scientific research or psych research on vampirism?
Well, just to throw that out there, lycanthropy is, for anyone who doesn't know, is the mental disorder of thinking that you're going to physically transform into a werewolf. Just to throw that out there. People that would typically say they identify like as a wolf or a cat or something would probably more or less call themselves a Therian, and you would say therianthropy. It's a hard word to say, to throw out there, but just to throw that out there. As far as like what do you mean, like blood test? Can I get a blood test to see if I'm a vamp?
No. If there's any, the reason I'm bringing up lycanthropy, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but the reason I'm bringing that up is, yeah, it's the clinical lycanthropy is. There's psych journals related to it, even going far back.
Of course.
I forgot when the latest it goes, but it's pretty far back. Where these people are saying they're werewolves. These people were saying they do these things, and it's coming up in a clinical setting. People are talking about it, writing about it, and trying to, at least anyway, in an objective, scientific way. Is there any of that regarding vampirism that you know of?
There's been some surveys and things like that. Now, as far as like accredited, in a science journal of okay, this doctor did a blood test on 50 different, something like that. No.
I mean,
there's been some surveys out there that you could say were empirical data.
Yeah, I mean, you're not really that. Yeah. Now, even with the clinical lycanthropy stuff, there wasn't even like that. I don't even think they were peer reviewed. They were just. It was just.
It's usually looked at as something that's, as far as like the physical transformation thing, that's that's out there. I mean, if somebody literally thinks that, like, they need to get some help. Most Therians aren't going to tell you, I think I'm going to transform into a cougar. Like, they just that's how they identify, whatever, and that's not anything I could really relate to as far as that. But
neither can
I don't think. Yeah. I think it's more open to being researched and for people to be more open with their primary care physician, with their psychiatrist. There's nothing wrong with going and talking to a psychiatrist. It's always great to have somebody to talk to. So I encourage people to, if they are like me or like, they fit into that kind of like other category, find somebody you're comfortable with that is going to be okay with you, not going to discriminate against you if you do want to talk about those things, because that's totally okay and normal. It should not be,
definitely not
that
a
needs
doctor.
to be more normalized.
Oh, I was going to say,
Absolutely.
definitely not a psychiatrist who's probably going to write you some medication. Because
they very may well try. I mean, they could. But
when I read those psych journals, one thing I noticed, these people go into, they're talking about, of course, clinical psychotherapy. It's like, okay, they go into the facility, let's talk about this, or to a professional. What do they get? Medication. It's like, is that the answer? Is that the answer here? Come on.
On the vampire side of it, the condition that you would call is like, and it's like, see right here, I pulled this up off of Wikipedia, and it says clinical vampirism, more commonly known as Renfield syndrome. It's really stupid they do this, because this is something right here that's like detrimental. Like, this person never should have related Renfield syndrome to clinical vampirism, because Renfield syndrome was something that was popularized by like one guy, and it's not peer reviewed or anything like that. So that's
Renfield's
totally
the
off the
character
wall.
in Dracula. That's weird.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think he was just trying to be hip or whatnot.
Yeah.
And what they actually relate that to, clinical vampirism, is more or less like someone that's unfortunately dealt with some kind of like possibly sexual abuse in their adolescence, and that's warped and like turned into a fascination with blood and drinking blood or whatever. For me, there's nothing, and for most real legitimate vampires, there's no sexual element to blood feeding. There are some.
That sounds like a kink. That sounds like a fetish. I talk with people like that too.
It is mostly, and there are some. There's a very small minority of real vampires that do feed during sex, blood wise, anyways, and whatever, and that's fine. But it's not the norm by any means.
Okay.
So to me, like when I have blood or for my donor or my beef blood, I'm not catching a boner.
Now let's move into the vampirism stigma and misconceptions. We can have a field day with this. Really?
Sure.
So right from the top, are you immortal?
Silver. I am not immortal.
Is that a bummer?
Absolutely not.
Do you want to be immortal?
I don't know. Somebody asked me that question the other day, and I said, I don't really know. I think if there wasn't some kind of regenerative thing like really going on, that you're probably, your mind would degrade too. I think you probably would go a little cuckoo after, a couple hundred years, maybe even. Who knows? So no, that's not really something I crave.
Okay. Yeah, immortality
comes along. Sure.
You get bored after a while. I mean, that was the problem with Dracula. That's why
I'm all for that stuff, though. Don't get me wrong. I am all for scientific endeavors and us finding out the key to immortality one day. Hopefully down the line somewhere. I am not a hardcore transhumanist. I would say I'm an eclectic transhumanist. I am for that stuff. Eugenics and so forth. But if it happens in my lifetime, it happens. If it doesn't, hey, whatever. Too bad.
Okay. All right. Other cliches. Do you turn into a bat? The vampires listening right now, do you all turn into bats? And by the way,
Absolutely.
The vampires listening right now, are there things that you would like to ask? Feel free to. Anyway.
Oh, gosh. I don't mind. Not at all. No, we definitely don't turn into bats. We don't turn into wolves. I'm not going to turn into a cloud of mist. I might, come visit you in your sleep.
But it would be cool. That is
cool.
Right? It would be cool to do that.
It
would be really cool.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it would be extremely painful. People think it sounds really cool to be able to shapeshift, and it's like, imagine how painful that would be to have your entire skeletal structure everything in the matter of minutes just completely metamorphous, that would have to hurt.
It would have to hurt. That's the only way it would make sense.
Yeah, how could you escape the pain from that? I don't know.
You are an organic transformer. That's gonna hurt.
An organic transform or organiformer.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it's not gonna work right. Man, did you catch the? I don't know if you watch vampire shows, but did you catch the Netflix BBC Dracula? Did you watch that?
I did. I did. A lot of people, it seems like to me, are giving it a hard time. I think they're overanalyzing it, and I really liked it. I thought it was great.
I thought it was great too, up until the third part. The third part was when I was like,
and it was short.
It was short.
That was disappointing. I was like, come on, can we get 8 episodes? Like,
the reason why I bring that up though is because that werewolf transformation sequence that looked painful.
It was amazing. It was so painful. Cool. It absolutely looked painful. I think that's probably one of the cooler werewolf transformations that I've seen in a long time. It was really neat. That show really stuck out to me. I thought it was really well done. Just everything great.
What killed me was when they used the same actress to play her I guess next in line in the family chain.
Oh yeah, because she looked exactly. It's like, okay, well, this is obviously the same person.
Yeah, that killed me. That killed me. I was like,
so realistic. Yeah, and of course, like people could look, similar and stuff in your family line. Of course, it happens. But yeah, it was kind of like,
all right.
It was a good show, though. Good show.
Other cliches. There's a bunch. So unfortunately, don't transform. Sunlight. You're good with sunlight. It's not gonna burn you.
No, I'm not going to burst into flames. Go screaming down the street.
If I put a stake,
thankfully, thank God.
If I put
a stake's going to kill anybody.
Stake into your heart, would that kill you?
Obviously, I would hope so. If it doesn't kill me, we have a problem.
It would kill me too, but I guess that's not. All right, it would kill anybody.
Each other later and find out. No, that's.
All right, when you feed on blood. Do you regenerate? Does it have health restoring properties?
I wouldn't say that it has health restoring properties. I would say that it helps us balance out. I heal fairly quickly, but it's not like, again, these are things that like, okay, I might be healing a little faster than other people, and I might not be. There's not really any way for me to test that. I'm definitely not going to regrow a limb if we cut off a finger. So, no, I wouldn't say that that's anything to even, most of the things are myths and just kind of.
And we kind of touched on this in the beginning too, like earlier with the Vlad the Impaler. I mean, the common trope is that he's the original. It's like he's Dracula.
That's bull honky. That doesn't mean anything.
Do we have an idea?
I don't think he was a vampire at all.
And that's the thing too. Vlad was probably not a vampire. It sounds like it was twisted by probably some Christian writer, whatever, monk or whatever who got a hold of it. Turned into a vampire thing. Yeah. He was just trying to defend his homeland. And then impaling bodies with stakes, that's a good way to tell people to get the fuck out of your area, right?
Yeah.
If I did that in my front yard?
On poles, like, basically was his front yard. They say that he would sit out there and like have breakfast or whatever around a bunch of. I mean, that's the way to do it. You want to keep people. He's actually in Transylvania. Coincidentally, I mean, he's like a hero to them. Yeah. They look at him like because he defended against like the Turks or something.
Right.
And you sent them all away. So
you pull that shit off in real life right now. You bet your ass to please. Well, of course, for a lot of reasons. But even if you did with just like dummies or you maybe use sex dolls or something you used, mannequins, to just make that scene, the authorities are going to be at your house real fast. And they're probably
you could do that nowadays.
It's going to make a scene.
I'd be in big doo-doo. I actually, that's another funny story. Speaking of the authorities, speaking of the authorities, So when I was in North Carolina going through my awakening, there was actually an FBI agent that showed up while I was there, and that's why I ended up leaving. And someone had called like child services or something and said, "Oh, there's vampires there," so, something kooky. And that's actually what the FBI agent said. Like he legitimately showed up and said, somebody called and said there's vampires here, and it was like he was there for 10, 15 minutes, talking to us on the porch or something. And the dad of the family's like, "Oh, there's no vampires here," and
I hope
he just
not.
left, went on his way. But it was really strange. It was really, yeah, it was really funny. So that's why I ended up leaving, staying with them. Because of course, I didn't want to get them in trouble. They have kids and blah, blah. So, I had to get the hell out. So I kind of had an awakening, a smack on the ass, and was thrown out the door. So it's different for everybody what happens and who they're around and go through. I mean, it's very varied. So
Yeah, like if a cop were to show up at your door and ask if you're a vampire, what would you say?
I would tell him no.
Yeah,
I would tell him no. And why is he on
that's
my doorstep? Like, do you have a reason to be here? Do you have a warrant? Is there
mm-hmm,
something like I can help you
mm-hmm.
with? I'm not gonna pull that into. I actually heard a funny story. It's funny. I won't say who, but somebody got in trouble at an airport. This is about maybe a year or less ago, and they told the security people that they were a vampire. Like that was supposed to mean something to them. Like,
Yeah.
dude, you sound stupid.
Right. But see, I'm not. I didn't ask that question as I gotcha. Oh yeah, he's not really a vampire. I asked that because anytime a police
Of
goes,
course, no, I know.
an officer shows up at your door and asks any sort of question that could be suspect, you say no. What? No.
Yeah,
Are you
no,
having a
I'm gonna
sex
want
orgy
to know
in
why
here?
you're at my house.
No, I'm not having
I'm
any
not
sex
doing
orgy.
anything.
No, I
I
don't know
don't.
what you're talking about. You have any drugs in here? Definitely not. I don't know what you're talking about. Drugs. Psh, I don't know what you're talking about, officer. Okay. Capes. Do you wear capes?
I do not wear a cape. No,
Coffin.
sadly,
You sleep in coffins.
absolutely not. I sleep in a bed.
Sleep in the bed.
I was actually, that's another conversation I was having with a friend the other day, was about sleeping in a coffin, and I was like, if I would really want to try sleeping in a coffin, I would have to have a deluxe coffin. Like I better have a big ass coffin. It better be really cushiony and comfy, like some
Okay.
speakers in there or something, like a
What
ballin' ass
about
coffin.
what about look, in all those vampire movies, they always have hot goth babes. You get a lot of that.
Um,
Is that even
uh,
your thing?
that's not even. I don't know who doesn't love big titty goth girls. I don't know.
I love
Um,
them. Even if I was
yeah,
gay, I would love them.
sure. Even if I was gay. I think I've always had that element about me that I've never really stayed single for long in my life. I've always had like kind of chicks after me and stuff. I'll not let my wife downstairs hear me talking about this, but I'm kidding.
It's
But
okay.
I mean, that kind of just comes with the territory in a way. I'm not a great looking guy, but I've always had girls after me ever since I was younger. I
And
always had that kind of
I think I might know the
charismatic.
answer. I think I might know the answer to this one, but you don't have to give up your soul to Satan or make some sort of
No,
pact. Okay,
no, only
That's-
only
that's in movies.
Beelzebub.
That's in movies. I think it was called Alucarda. It was a Spanish film.
Alucard.
Yeah. Let's see.
No,
What
you don't
other
have to sign any pacts for no contracts. Nope.
No contracts. That's good. That's
No.
good. What else? Do you get well, do you run across hunters? Do you run across people who be like, you smell like a vampire?
I'm gonna kill you.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that will say that they're hunters, and I don't think it's really a real thing. I think most of the time these people are unfortunately, psychologically unhinged. They need to get some assistance because we are just normal folks. Aside from the obvious, we drink blood and have to feed and, have our little quirks and stuff. We're just trying to live our lives, man. So stay away from me, hunters.
Stay away. Stay away.
Stay away.
Well, what you don't know is that
I've
all
never
this
come
information
across
is being
somebody
fed
that
to
said-
someone else. No, I'm just joking.
Right.
You don't.
Yeah, they're on their way.
Yeah, no.
Blade
No.
is en route.
But okay, so no coffins. Coffins are extremely uncomfortable. Mirrors. I imagine you have reflection.
Of course, yes.
Okay, I know these are silly stuff. Just have to make sure.
Yeah, it's fine.
You
It's like
age?
this stuff is.
Do you
Yes, we
age?
age.
Yeah.
I'm 33. I probably look my age, or maybe a couple years younger. Some people have the idea that we age slower,
I wish I could. I wish I could have
or
put you
that
on camera.
aesthetically.
I wish I could
Yeah, I wish we
could put
could.
you on
That would
camera. I
have
really did, because when people
It's
think
all good.
vampires, they think long hair. They think the goth look, right? But you have that just every guy look.
I've got short hair. I wear glasses. I don't have perfect vision. I do have kind of a little bit of heightened hearing. That is something that's kind
good.
of that's another one of those things that's, again, that's kind of like something that's personal to me, not
Mm.
necessarily to anybody that's you know uh, vampiric or identifies that way.
Are
But
there are there any tropes or cliches that bother you, that really get under your fangs, as you mentioned before?
under my fangs, yes. There are some things that bother me. I don't know. I think the biggest thing that bothers me is that people that I can instinctually tell by what they're saying or typing that they really are fake, and that they're not truly a real vampire. They are someone who just uses that as a social outlet, or a way to make money or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with using, that kind of vampiric side of yourself to make money. But if you're doing it, solely for the purpose to be underhanded, right, and to give somebody bad deals, not give them what they paid for, stuff like that, that's not a good thing, right? So those types of things are what probably bothers me the worst. I think
Hmm.
is people that aren't really legitimate, and a lot of people get mad when you call them out or something, and it's just in the way that they say things and the way they come across. We know they're not genuine. It's like somebody saying, again, I my house is called the House of Lilith, but I don't believe that Lilith is my fairy godmother, so to speak. I had someone tell me, "Oh, Lilith awakened me. She showed up," and I was like, "Really? Yeah, I don't think so." So those kinds of people is what those they get under my skin, and it's not so much what they're saying, or that it doesn't affect my life personally at all.
Hmm.
What it bothers me about it is the underlying thing, that they're being deceitful, that they are appropriating something or language that doesn't necessarily apply to them, and they're trying to be subversive and get something out of that, like that really gives you any kind of anything in life. It doesn't. This is just a condition. I wasn't born into royalty
Hmm.
or rich, so that those things kind of bug me a bit. But that I would say that probably annoys me a lot more than people thinking that, like, I'm fake, or I don't care. I've dealt with this since I was 18, so at this point it is what it is. It's just another part of my life, and it's something I have to deal with, and that's cool. Hey, everybody
Yeah,
has their thing.
I
So
imagine you've dealt with a lot of flack, a lot of naysayers, a lot of people criticizing you, maybe very harshly, and probably developed a pretty thick skin because of that.
no, you got to be, especially in the online vampire community, or the vampire community in general.
And
And I always say that I'm not really a part of it, because, like I told you, I don't subscribe to a lot of the hype and the politics, and the hierarchical, as I like to call it,
it
systems
is
and things like
hierarchical.
that.
It
So
is
Urkel is very high. Somebody had to be high to come up with some of the stuff they do. So I don't know.
right. And you know what? And I'm not trying to. Definitely don't name any names or anything like that. But
No, we're not
what
going to name drop
are
tonight.
there?
Tune in next time.
Are there certain like vague examples, like, of people faking? Because I know I was joking before, like, "Hey, bro, I'm
There's
a
plenty of
vampire, bro."
examples in the media, and typically it's people that sexualize the act of vampirism or blood feeding. That they like to dress up a lot and stuff, and again, that's to say, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But the people that are usually, their whole life, everything revolves around it, and their whole thing is surrounded around keeping up that image, right? Of being vampiric, and, oh, I'm into, all these alt alternative type, fringe community type things, and that really has nothing to do with it. You know what I mean? So.
Okay.
I think they I mean, there's also people too, like, to get into the people that are like portray that kind of mentality is also people that are like blood fetishists. So instead of them being honest about it, Jesse, and saying, "Hey, I get a sexual kick from drinking blood. That's me. That's how I identify." And who's gonna really? I couldn't care less to go out of the take the time out of my day to kink shame them. That's fine. But when they're you get my point. That's a clear difference in saying, okay, I'm
when they're
a blood
acting like
fetishist.
vampires, when they're trying to say, "Oh, I'm a vampire because I have to have
vampire,
like, bloodletting during sex or something. I like to cut during sex." Like, I've talked to people before that like to slice or dice during sex or whatever, but they don't drink it, or maybe they lick it, but it's not. From what I hear from you, like, it seems like you need it. Like,
I need it. It's a physical. The blood aspect is a physical need. The metaphysical aspect is it's a metaphysical need. So there's two different sides to that coin, for me at least. But yeah, no, it's totally a need. I mean, there's nothing sexual about it for me at all. So
Gotcha. Okay.
And again, there's nothing wrong with that element, but it's the honesty factor that plays in.
Now,
so that's not cool. That's again somebody saying something that's not. It's just not true.
Do you have a favorite vampire movie, or is that like hard to choose? Is that impossible to choose because they're all probably
it's
all bad?
not impossible to yeah. In a way, that's kind of how I look at it. I don't really subscribe to a lot of vampiric fictional stuff because it just doesn't do it for me. I mean, it's kind of like being the genuine article, for lack of a better term, and it's all hype. But I do like a lot of it. Definitely, I love Interview with the Vampire. We talked about that earlier before we actually got on here with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Oh, that was great.
Lestat or Louis? Who would you choose? Who's better?
Lestat, Louis. I'm gonna have to go with Louis. People are gonna argue with me on this,
Wrong
but
choice.
Lestat. Lestat's a dick.
Look, Lestat's a dick, but
he's too jerk. He's too jerky in that movie. I liked him better in Queen of the Damned.
But Louis was such a crybaby. Louis was like, but I'm
well, that's something that's something that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily relate to, him being a crybaby. I don't relate to him being a crybaby, but I can kind of see the side of it where he's kind of torn between, okay, this is something I am now. This is what I have to do, and I'm having this identity crisis. So I can understand that. From years back when there was a time where I had to go through that transitional period and getting used to saying, okay, I lived my first part of my life as far as I knew I was normal, and then this happened, and now I have to go on living, and this is my life now, to get over that kind of hump. So in that way I can kind of relate to Louis a little bit, more so than I try not to be a jackass like Lestat. So I like Lost Boys. Lost Boys is good.
Lost Boys is good.
Oh man. Blade's another good one. I always love the original Blade. I like the second and third one.
Blade's a badass. Blade's but Blade,
awesome.
Would Blade hunt you down? I don't know. Would Blade kill you?
I hope not. He might try. Speaking of Blade, Mahershala Ali, what do you think about that casting? I think he's going to be great. I don't know.
You know what? I'm excited to see another Blade. It's been a while. Why not? It's been a while. Yeah. As you know what though, time out, because it's like I want them to do something new. First off, but
right.
Okay.
We'll see where they go with it. I hope they don't do the whole, like, if they do Dracula right out of the gate as his like arch nemesis, it's too pivotal. I hopefully they do good. That's
maybe they'll do Frost. I don't know. Maybe they'll just reboot the whole original Blade movie.
Reboot the whole thing. Yeah, I always liked Deacon Frost. Deacon Frost was a great villain. He's, he just nails all the points for me as a villain.
I rewatched
he's a good-looking guy.
I rewatched it not too long ago, and it's very 90s, right? It's 90s. It's very 90s in some parts, but it's like it's so good. They had practical effects for the gunshots. The CG part at the end was horrible. It was horrible then. It's horrible now. That stupid blood hurricane they had.
Oh yeah, where they yeah, he
What
gets
the
cut, and then he's like,
thinking?
he's pulling himself back together. Oh god, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It definitely didn't stand the test of time
No,
either.
no, no. That was horrible then. And
No, it was bad
most
then.
people that watch it were like, okay, this is the part of the movie that kind of sucks. But after this, he has a pretty cool line where he says, "What some motherfuckers always try to ice skate uphill or something." I don't know, man.
Yeah. He says some motherfuckers always try to ice skate uphill. Yeah, I love
like,
that line
okay.
too.
And that was an ad lib line too. I was like, oh, all right, Wesley Snipes.
Really, I did not know that. Okay, that's cool. Yeah,
He dodges
that's
taxes.
something that's kind of faded out of film. You know,
that's his
that
vice.
is so much ad lib. Used to be more of a thing and more improvising, and that's slowly faded out of film. Sadly,
Yeah.
that's like the Star Wars line. You know, when Leia tells Han Solo, "I love you," and he says, "I know."
Right?
You know, they filmed over and over him saying, "I love you," and it just never. And then they're like, "Okay," I watched the documentary, right? And they rushed everybody, you know, got everybody ready to do the scene, and he said, "I know," and they're like, "Okay, that's it." That's what Han Solo would say, you know.
Right.
So that's kind of faded out of film.
Right.
Sadly,
That's the
I'm
better.
a huge film
That's the better
buff.
cut right there. That's a much better cut. Han saying "I love you too." Pfft, come on, Han knows. Han knows Leia loves him. Come on,
Yeah.
come on. He knows. He would say something cool like, "I know." Oh,
All right. We couldn't have gotten away with that line nowadays. It would have been too. It wouldn't have been.
I don't know. I don't know. I think there's.
It would have been misogynistic because he's not acknowledging his love for her. He's demeaning her love.
I'm gonna give the. I have a feeling that the PC stuff is. I don't know. It's getting tested. It's getting tested. More people are comedians and other people are testing it. And like, come on, guys. Like, we can't all be so sensitive. Come on, we gotta be able to create things.
And that was the thing that I saw going around on social media afterwards, after Dave Chappelle and David, or no, sorry, not David, but Bill Burr came out with their most recent stand-ups. Yeah, they were both hilarious. And somebody had a meme going around that said, you know, Dave Chappelle and Bill Burr didn't get more extreme with their comedy stand-up. You just got more sensitive. You know, and it's really the truth, because it's like, yeah, that Dave Chappelle's been the same for years. I mean, that's
and what he said is true.
You know?
He had some really good points of that joke, that long joke, and it's like, but that is so true. But anyway, we got to wrap up the show, because you know, I do have.
Well, if you got anything else for me, feel free.
But you got a favorite horror movie in general?
I figured that would probably be something that would come up. I was thinking about that, and to me, like, the worst horror movies are Aliens. Now, I don't mean the series Aliens with Sigourney. Is it Sigourney Weaver? I think that's her name, right?
Yeah, the first one's good.
Okay.
First two.
Yeah, I love Aliens franchise, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking specifically about creatures that are not terrestrial to our planet, right? Those are the movies that freak me out the most. Like Fire in the Sky. That was a huge one for me when I was younger. I still love that film, but it's hard to watch for me still to this day for whatever reason. That's actually based on a true story, by the way. The guy, he was a logger, and he disappears for so many weeks, right? He's just gone. And all these people from his logging crew are right there to watch it, like him being taken up, and then he's gone. And then all of a sudden, like a month or two later goes by, and he just comes back out of, you know, he's suddenly returned. And that movie always really freaked me out.
Fire in the Sky.
Fire in the Sky, yes.
How old is that?
That is a lesser known. Oh man, that's got to be like, we're talking mid 90s, probably early mid 90s, something like that. Maybe mid to late 90s. Definitely 90s though.
See, I gotta check that out. I don't know how these horrors do this.
It's horrifying. I mean, there's a scene in there where he's on the ship, right, and he's covered in all this gook, you know, whatever, to keep him fresh, or God knows what. And then he comes back, right, and then there's a scene where he's all freaked out and he's under the kitchen table, and this container of grape jelly knocks over and it starts oozing down, and he's having this like panic attack moment where he can't move. He's just looking at the the jelly like dripping down slowly like towards him, because you know that's kind of like PTSD, right? You know, he has that memory from when he's on the ship. So that scene was always like really freaky to me, you know. And then there's they got him on the table in the ship, and the aliens are standing over him and like, digging into him and stuff.
Oh, gross.
I don't know why aliens have always freaked me out.
I gotta check out that movie. One thing I like about doing this show is that I always hear about titles that I haven't heard of before, which is gonna happen, So I gotta check.
What
that
about?
one out.
I was gonna say Final Destination, but not.
That's cool.
Shoot. Yeah, no, Final Destination's great. I was thinking of another one. Hold on, let me see.
How many versions of that? Isn't there like 3 or 4?
There's a lot.
Yeah, the first one's
there's
fine.
a lot.
Usually for this series, I go with the first one, first 2, and then it's like, come on, guys, you guys are kind of milking this one, huh?
Oh, okay. Event Horizon. That's up there as well.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Sam Neill.
That's pretty much Doom in space. I mean, that's kind of.
Oh, that was better than Doom. Oh, the Doom movies have been so
those
bad.
Those Doom movies are horrible. Dude, Doom Annihilation, I did a review on that. I was like, this is worse than the 2005 one. And you had.
I didn't even try. I started it, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do this because I'm just like, I just didn't even watch it because I know I'm gonna hate it, and it's not gonna compare to my wonderful memories of playing Doom. It's not gonna match.
They don't know how to do it. They try so hard to make a story and explain everything. You know what? I said this too in the review. If they just open the Doom movie how they open the Doom game, I think it would work just fine. You explain it through the action, through the gore, through the violence. You explain it that way, through his eyes, through the Doom guy's eyes. Just how they did it in the new Doom game. That had more of a story than whatever. But, you just, through his eyes, you see it. They did it with Hardcore Henry. They could do it with Doom.
Yeah, and it's the perfect time for it, too. Doom Eternal just came out. Let me get in that plug. No, I do not work for them. But, that just came out. So they really should try and do a good one. I think they've just massively failed.
It did.
It was bad.
Well, I do need to wrap up the show. I'll go wrap it up now.
Sounds great.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this, press a like, comment, share, subscribe. There's also a podcast feed. You can check this out on iTunes or Spreaker or whatever podcast app you use. Deadman's Tome. And we talked to all sorts of great guests. All right. Kaibus,
thanks for having
talking
me, man.
with you. It's great. I learned more about what it's like to be a vampire.
Awesome, dude. I'm glad I could be on there. It was wonderful.
Any appetite for blood? I don't know about psi energy. I don't know if I can do that. I got to test that out with my wife. Maybe I could drain her.
There you
she
go.
might just think I'm crazy, though. But
we'll
see what happens. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, y'all take it easy.
Yes, sir.
Y'all